Hi everyone, welcome to another Stash Build video. The fourth item on Stash Mountain is a 3D printed model of a Wraith Dart, as seen on the television series Stargate Atlantis. I bought this model on eBay from someone in the Ukraine. Unfortunately, they are no longer with eBay, so I can't even provide you with a link to his store. It's a bit unfair to compare this model to other commercial kits, as it is a homemade model that's been printed on someone's 3D printer. But we'll do it anyway. On the sunny side, this is a fairly unique model and it's currently not available from any commercial suppliers. There were some resin casts available about 15 years ago, but it's very difficult to get hold of them now. The model was obviously printed in sections, and the guy who glued everything together did an extremely good job of matching up all the seams. The details of the model are not too bad, and everything looks like it's in proportion. On the shady side, there are no extras. No paint guide, no mounting instructions, no tips and tricks. To prep the model for painting requires a lot of filling and sanding to get rid of those deep grooves created by the 3D printing process. The seller didn't mention what scale the Wraith Dart was. I estimated it to be about a 1:48 scale, and when I stood one of my 48 scale pilots next to it, it looked about right. The plastic that was used for the 3D printing will not be easy to paint with acrylics. Luckily, I wanted to try out some Alclad lacquers which I bought ages ago, and this provided me with the perfect opportunity. I do feel a little bad comparing the model to a commercial styrene kit, and I really appreciate the effort that went into creating the model, but it is what it is. This is a really nice model of an awesome spacecraft that required quite a bit of elbow grease to get the job done. Because of this, I can only give the kit a rating of 2 golden ostrich eggs. On opening the box, I discovered that it was mostly empty. The model was tied down securely with cable ties, which I clipped off very carefully. When I inspected the Wraith ship, I was quite impressed. As I mentioned before, the person who sold the model went to great lengths to align the various printed sections up perfectly. However, the front end looked a little bit fishy, and the wing on the port side was split, but with a little bit of work, I'd get it back into shape. Everything else looked okay, except that I would have to add a lot of detail to the outside of the dart to cover up the grooves which were created by the 3D printing process. The outer hull of the Wraith Dart has a very organic look to it. I tested various methods on the back of a plastic spoon to achieve this same effect. The best method I could find was to apply thinned down modeler's putty with a hard paintbrush. I followed this up with deep gouges from a toothpick to add a bit of extra detail. My big conundrum was to find out the best way to thin out Tamiya putty. In the past, I've tried acrylic thinners, enamel thinners, cooking oil, and even brake fluid, but nothing worked very well. I even googled discussion groups, which mostly suggested lacquer thinners, but these appeared to dry too quickly. Finally, I visited the Tamiya website and they had the perfect solution. Tamiya Extra Thin Cement. I was skeptical, but I figured they knew more than I did. I whipped up a batch of putty and thin cement and started applying it with an old paintbrush as I had done before. From the get-go, the effect was perfect. I thought I'd probably have to work very fast, but everything actually dried a lot slower than I had expected. I could even go back and change some details a small while after applying the first coat. I covered the hull with this putty mixture, as well as the wings and other parts of the model, and referred to the reference picture constantly for guidance. There were a few small lumps, but I removed these with a toothpick while I was adding the extra detail before the putty dried completely. After a bit of trial and error, I managed to cover most of the grooves created by the 3D printing, and also added enough detail so that the model resembled the dart in the reference picture. I applied a base coat of Alclad gloss black to the upper and lower parts of the model. The base coat was awesome as it dried almost immediately. Still, I left it for an hour to cure just to be safe. It dried with a beautiful shiny coat, which is important as this gives the subsequent coats applied over it an amazing metallic sheen. I wasn't exactly sure which colors to use, as all the pictures I could find and the footage from Stargate Atlantis showed the colors looking a bit different every time. So I consulted Trevor, my local Stargate expert. He explained to me that Wraith technology was not built, but grown like a living creature. The color of the Wraith Dart actually depended on which particular hive created them, and of course the age of the craft itself. I decided to go with the colors of the reference picture, which I'd been using all along. I liked the contrast of the red with the dark, shiny exoskeleton. For the main color, I used Alclad magnesium. I applied this as a very light coat over the whole model. When it dried, it gave a dark coat with a great metallic luster. Once again, it dried almost immediately, so I only left it for about half an hour to cure completely. Next, I masked off the cockpit to prepare it for its coat of paint. It was hard to decide which color to use for the canopy, as this was actually formed by a force field in the TV series. I decided to go with mirrored gold, as this was a nice contrast to the magnesium layer I'd applied earlier. When working with Alclad paints, less is more. All that is needed is a couple of quick passes with an airbrush, and the canopy was done. I masked off areas at the back of the engine and the lower hull, which needed to be a darker color than the rest of the spacecraft. I sprayed these with Alclad jet exhaust. I liked the effect that was created, as the black color contrasted very subtly with the dark metallic coat that was on the rest of the ship. I gave the model a quick coat of Alclad clear coat gloss to seal in all the metallic colors. To finish off the model, I needed to add some red detail to the rear engine and wings. I decided that the easiest way to do this was to paint it by hand. In order for the red paint to stand out, I first applied a coat of white gloss acrylic paint. This was followed by a couple of coats of acrylic red gloss. After the paint dried, I added a coat of micro gloss varnish to seal the acrylics in. In the end, I managed to get rid of a lot of grooves created by the 3D printer, and I added some fairly nice surface detail too. I was impressed with the Alclad products which I used, and will definitely use them in more of my future projects. And that's it for stash build number 4, the 3D printed Wraith Dart. It was really fun to see it come to life after adding just a few coats of paint. So long, and thanks for watching.